right. Welcome to Screen Time with today's Communiqué. We are so excited to have Ms. Terrill Miller with TMM Financial and Tax Services joining us to talk about a very important topic, tax time. And so before we get into the segment, we do want to say thank you and give a special shout out to the Women's Foundation of Arkansas and their Women's Economic Mobility Hub for sponsoring this segment. So thank you, Women's Foundation of Arkansas. And with that,
Absolutely.
Miller, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Before we start talking about all things taxes, tell us a little bit about you and your career path.
Oh, wow. A little bit about me. It's always awkward when somebody says, tell me about yourself, right? As she's already said, my name is Terrill Miller. I am in El Dorado, Arkansas. I am the owner of TMM Financial and Tax Services here in El Dorado. I am mom of two boys, 22 and 17. Yay for that, right? So basically been a single mom, since they were little boys. So they've kind of watched me go through all of the stages that I had to go through here. But I didn't start out in taxes, of course. I started out in the health profession as a nurse. I did nurse for a long time. And then when I couldn't anymore because of health issues, I just decided to step out in the entrepreneur world, right? It's something I've always wanted to do, but I just thought it would be in healthcare field. I wanted to own a home health business, but needless to say, I started with just volunteering through the VITA program. I was a AmeriCorps Vista volunteer um, as I went to school for respiratory therapy. And so when I did that, I kind of liked it. I don't know. I enjoyed it. And so I did it kind of on the side, for myself, my friends, and my family, not just as a business or anything like that. It was just interesting for me to do. And so when I had health issues, I was like, okay, let me try this. So I've been, I guess, full time in my business, or I can say in the business for 3 years, where I actually said, okay, I'm going to make this a business. So I've been doing it for 3 years as a business.
Oh,
So there we have it. That's why I am here today. Yeah.
you have to have like some special training or formal certifications or anything like that to have a tax service or tax business. What is it?
Well, to actually, only thing you really need, because you don't have to go through, there are some states like California, New York, that actually require you to have like special education or educational like training you have to go through. But basic, pretty much, if you know how to read, write, and add, do simple math, you do have to get a PTIN through the IRS. That's just basic. That's just to be able to say that I'm a tax preparer and I can prepare tax returns. But if for business, you do need to get a second number, which is your EFIN, and that is just allow you to be able to file returns electronically. And so for business wise, you do need a PTIN and an EFIN, and I have those. There's other credentials that you can go through and get education and training for and test for. But that's pretty much it. Basic PTIN, you're good to go. You can get that 15 minutes.
Great.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So let's
Yep.
talk about taxes. So we know that we are still in the middle of a pandemic
Yes.
for a couple of years now, and we know that that has affected a lot of people's finances and their financial resources. People
Yeah.
lost jobs and are still
Yes.
at home trying to find work. Hours have been cut. And so some people are trying to get back into the workforce after being off for a couple of years. And so
Yeah.
with those who are getting back into the workforce, knowing now it's tax time, it's time to file those taxes. What are some things that people who've been dislocated for a couple of years, what are some things that they need to keep in mind and consider when it's time to file their taxes this year?
Well, One thing is, of course, we know with everybody that's been, relocated or dislocated um, during the pandemic, that the government stepped in and helped, right, to kind of provide some help with that, with the stimulus payments. And then also the advanced child tax credit that they allow, those that had children to get an advance on their child tax credit they would have gotten, this year for tax season. So with that, I would definitely say um, going forward now, knowing what we know now, is one, be sure that you do know where you stand as far as receiving those stimulus payments. If you receive those child tax credit, how they're going to affect your tax return, how you need to file them. There were some people that got a third, some people did not. I think a lot of people did not. So they are going to allow those that didn't get the advanced tax credits or this third stimulus to actually reconcile those on your return this year. So those are going to be some additional credits that can be added to your return this year. Also, they allow last year, if your AIG or your annual gross income was less because you've lost your income, that you could use your AIG from 2019. Well, they're also going to allow you to do that again this year. So for this year, for this tax season, if your AIG is less, from 2021, they're still going to allow you to use 2019 to file your tax returns this year. So that's definitely going to help a lot of people, because for some people that, kind of made their income less, so therefore, if they went down below a certain number, then they didn't qualify for some credits that they qualified for before. And of course, their tax liability, things of that nature. So they're allowing you to do that to kind of help out to increase your refunds this year with those credits. So that's going to help a lot of people. So far, I've had some people that have been just really, really just grateful that they've been able to do that, because that did increase a lot of people's refunds for this year. Yeah. So just knowing that you know where you stand with having those stimulus payments, and if you qualify for those child tax credits this year, for sure.
And so keeping with the theme of loss of income, is there a specific threshold that one has to make as far as their income is concerned in order to file taxes? So in other words, does everyone have to file taxes, or is there, a case where if you didn't make enough money or a certain amount of money, you do not have to file taxes? How does that work?
Yeah, the IRS says that, of course, there is a limit where you don't have to file because you didn't make enough earned income, so therefore your tax liability is not worth you basically filing, so you don't have to pay out anything. So there is a threshold, and it is dependent on your age, your filing status, and your income, your earned income that you've made. So basically, let's see, I have it here on the chart. It's charted here. So basically, if you're 65 years or younger, then they say if you've made below like $12,000, then you don't have to file, right? And then, of course, depending on your filing status. So everybody is not obligated, depending on your age, your filing status, and what your income was. So it's different for each filing status. But as we all know, during the pandemic, that even if you were not required to file based on a low tax liability or no tax liability at all, you were encouraged to file so that you could get that stimulus payment, right?
Mhm.
So even if you're not, obligated to file because you are at that threshold of your filing status and your income and your age level, still file, especially if you did not receive one or any of those stimulus payments so that you can get that payment. And then also in regards to that, they have changed the earned income limits as well. Prior years, you had to be 25 years, between 25 and 64 years of age to qualify for the earned income, right? The earned income credit. This year, they have said, you know what? because of the pandemic, it's affected everybody of all ages. They have now removed that. So anybody, even the younger age group and the older age group, can now file a tax return and get their earned income tax credit. So that's something new that they've done this year to kind of help out with people that has been affected by the pandemic. So that is very, very awesome. That is very good. Yeah. Yeah,
That's
and it even increased for the single. It was like 589 or something like that. So now it's like at $1,000 now that they now have increased that credit for somebody that does not have children. So that's going to be really, really helpful for a lot of people.
wow. That is definitely news you can use.
Yes.
A lot of people will be happy to hear that.
Yes.
For those who didn't know that already. And so,
Yeah.
in keeping with the pandemic, we know that the pandemic has forced a lot of people, willingly or unwillingly, to pivot as far as their economics and their financial situation is concerned. And for a lot of people, they started side businesses or part
Yes.
jobs and
Yes.
are getting some raking in some income that way. And so that said, how does having a side hustle, if you will, or a job, two jobs or more, how does that affect the way that you file your taxes? So for example, if I work a 9 to 5 and then with the pandemic I started my own, side business as a solopreneur, how does that affect the way that I file my taxes? Or does it?
It does. Yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of people did. The pandemic, I said, forced a lot of people to get out of their comfort zone or get out of their own way, in a sense, to go ahead and get this business started that they've been thinking about forever. And a lot of people just like came up with ideas. So, with that being said, the government says, even if it was something as a hobby that you started during the pandemic, if you made income from that hobby or from whatever that job was over $600, then you do have to file that income on your tax return, right? Some people think, well, I don't have it, I don't have an LLC, it's not registered. That doesn't matter. If you've done something, that you generated for income and that was the sole purpose of whatever it was, this thing that you done, whether it was, a lot of people began making masks, that sort of thing, and whether you were selling plates out of your home, whatever it was, if it brought in additional income for you, then the IRS says that, yeah, we need you to notate that on your 1040 as well. So you will need to include that. But the good thing is also with that, of course, anybody that has a business know that it takes money to run any type of business, whether it's a side hustle or not. You do have now qualified for deductions that you didn't qualify for last year or the year before, that you did not have that side hustle that you now have. So you have one, the start of the business, whatever the cost that may have been, any cost of goods, materials, equipment, whatever it took for you to run that business. Now you have that as a deduction on your return this year.
Okay.
And if it was something that you did outside your home, you can also have that use of your home to run your business. So you have a deduction for that as well. And so there's a lot of things that you actually get to do for having a business that you didn't do last year. And for some people that can help, and it just depends on the income level as well. So you get to do those things you didn't do before, didn't know that you could do, that you can do now. Yeah.
More news you can use for sure.
Yeah.
News you can use.
Yes.
Oh, and so let's talk about with filing our taxes.
Hmm.
Sometimes people get audited.
Yeah.
And so, if someone, or first of all, what does it mean to get audited? What does that mean? And then, secondly, if someone were to get a notification that you've been audited, how should they prepare for that audit? Is it a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Talk a little bit about that audit process.
Okay. Well, not necessarily as far as the audit, it's not necessarily mean that it's a bad thing, right? The IRS can go back up to 3 years of any type of income or tax return filing or whatnot. So it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. The process definitely, I would tell anybody, if you get a letter, first of all, that's how you're going to know. You're going to get a letter in the mail stating that you're being audited, and it's going to have a code on there, whatever reason. First thing I would say is don't panic, don't freak out if you get a letter saying that you're going to be audited. First thing I would suggest is contact whoever your tax preparer is and say, hey, I received this notice from the IRS that says I'm being audited. Take that letter to your tax preparer, let them review it, and they're kind of walk you through the process of what needs to be done based on that letter. Second thing I would suggest is on that letter, there's always going to be, like I said, a code, a tax code or audit code that's going to be in that letter. Also a number, case number or something, and a phone number.
Okay.
So second thing is call the IRS with that number, that phone number, and give them that ID number that's on there. So they'll let you know. They have really, really, really good tax advocates. I know from personal experience. Okay. And they will walk you through whatever the process is, whatever the reason is for the tax audit. Now, whether it's good or bad, they'll let you know, what is it? Because sometimes it's just simple, something as simple as something was a number, a digit or something was off on a social security number, right? So they're contacting you to say, hey, we need you to provide us with documentation, to provide us with, to say who this person is. So it just may need for them to identify who you are. It could be something as simple as, hey, we did some adjustments to your tax return because of whatever reason. We found that we owe you some money, right? It'd be good for them to say that, right? Or that you may something wasn't filed correctly, so you have a balance due or something of that nature. So it's not always a bad thing. It can be just something as simple as letting you know, hey, your tax return is going to be delayed, right? There's some processes that so it's not always a bad thing, but don't freak out, don't you know get nervous. But I would say, first contact your tax preparer and then also contact the IRS. Now, if you come in with me, TMM Financial here, I do provide a protection for that, and it's called Protection Plus. And so it provides each 1040 return that's filed through my company on audit protection and ID theft protection. And so if you do get a notice, then you of course call me, and then we have a whole team that's going to be on it to kind of see be the person between you and the IRS to figure out how whatever needs to be taken care of. Now, so it's not always a bad thing. So don't freak out. Just contact your tax preparer and then call the tax advocate. They're really, really, really helpful in that instance for sure.
Right. And when you were talking about that, I just wondered, is it better to file e-file, or is it better to send in your paper copy of your taxes, or does it even matter? One.
Well, the IRS has always suggested e-file, right? Because that's the best and quickest way to get it done. It's done electronic and sent through, right? Versus sending in the mail where it has to go through all these different processes in different hands and different departments, that sort of thing. But especially now during the pandemic, right? The pandemic because even as of right now, we still have people that have not gotten their 2019.
Oh.
Because of all of the laws that came through and all the changes. There were some returns that had to be amended, and a lot of times, depending on the year, those had to be sent in, right? It had to be done paperless, or through the mail. So it's always best, most efficient way and fastest way is to electronically file your tax return at all costs. Like I said, there are some instances where, you have to paper file it. And of course, that's going to cause even more delays, through the mail. But e-file is always the best way to go if it's eligible to be e-file for sure.
Wow, this is such rich information. Tax season just opened in January. And so we know that the deadline is in April to file our taxes, unless
Yes.
we request an extension. And so I know that lots of people are starting to get their paperwork, find their receipts, get their, their W-2s together and all their other paperwork together. So as they're getting everything together, figuring out their deductions and things, are there one or two things that they can still do right now to help them save money on their 2021 taxes? Or is it like 2021 is a wash, get your paperwork together and just e-file? Is there anything that you can do at this
Yeah. Yeah, at this point, yeah, because we've now into February, right? So we kind of, especially for anybody that has a business, last month was the month to get everything in to try to lower that tax liability for you.
point?
Um, so I would say this, as you were saying, getting your documents and everything together. I always suggest do your tax planning at the beginning of the year so that you don't have to wait till last minute to do it. But as of right now, I would say know your filing status first and foremost. A lot of people really don't understand that sometimes they actually qualify for more than one tax filing status.
Oh,
So know your tax filing status first, because, for instance, if you're married filing jointly, it may be better or more beneficial to file separately because it may decrease your tax liability. So definitely know your tax filing status. That's going to be best for you to help keep your tax liability at a minimum at most. And then secondly, with that, that also helps you to identify what standard deduction that you qualify for, because of course that did increase this year as well. So based on your filing status, that gives you your standard deduction in which you to file. And going forward, know your W-4 filing status as well. So those two things kind of go together. I have seen some instances this year. Can't do anything about it this year, but going forward, now is the time to go back and double check your W-4 to be sure that you have the correct exemptions on there, to be sure that you have the correct amount of withholdings coming from your income. A
gotcha.
lot of people found out the hard way this year when they found out they didn't pay anything in. And then I also may suggest that I've always done this, I guess, for as long as I've known, is I've always elected to have additional $10 or $20 taken out,
Mhm.
just to be sure that I'm going to pay enough in, because of course if you pay in too much, then that you get that in your refund. So I would definitely suggest that do your tax planning now, because we kind of over that now that we're into February. Know your filing status and go back and double check to be sure that your W-4 is correct, so you don't fall back into that issue this year. Yeah.
Exactly. And I have a couple of friends that very scenario has happened to them and they're facing that right now. So that's good news to use, is to go back and check that W-4
Yes,
to get
yes,
absolutely. So
yes,
lots of good, rich information, news you can use, stuff that you can apply right now to
yes.
help you. Sure. So, one final question for you. If there are people out there watching who are in search of a tax preparer and they're thinking, oh, Miss Miller, she's got it on point. How can I get with her to do my taxes? Tell us how we can reach you and set up a consultation call.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, there are several ways actually. You can reach me. I am on social media. I'm on on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah. So my Facebook page, of course, is TMM Financial and Tax Services on Facebook, and it's the same, I think, on Instagram and LinkedIn actually. My phone number, of course, is going to be 469-708-4565. And then, of course, you can Google me. I'm Googleable, actually. So you can Google me and you can pull me up. I'm not hard to find. And then I have a calendar link also. So if there's a way that I can share that with everybody, I can do that as well. And you can set up appointment with me or you can call me. We can definitely get you taken care of. And you can actually schedule for my Facebook page. I have that set up that way as well.
And the fact that you are based in El Dorado is not a factor. It's not a limiting factor. If
Yeah.
someone in Little Rock or Pine Bluff or Fayetteville or even out of the state, they can still contact you and you can help them
Yes.
virtually.
Yes, I am certified e-file um, in all states that accept e-file tax returns. So doesn't matter where you are. Actually, matter of fact, I have a client that he's in California.
Okay.
So I'm going to be his tax preparer and bookkeeper. He's in California. So yeah, it does not matter as long as you have all of your information. That's one thing I also say is have all of your information, all of your income statements, all of your documents, documentation ready for who your tax preparer to be able to accurately get everything taken care of for you. So it doesn't matter where you are, where you live. I'm available. I'm virtual. I have portals, secure portals. You can securely send your documents over to me, things of that nature. So yeah, we can get it done. No problem.
Yay.
Yeah.
Miller, thank you so much for sharing all that wisdom with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
And so get those taxes done, start early,
Yes.
so you don't
Start early.
to the last minute.
Yes. Yes. Because you don't want to have to wait till April 18th. It's April 18th this year. So
April 18th is the deadline. I was going to say April 15th, but thank you for correcting that
yes.
before I even uttered it. April 18th is
Yes.
tax filing deadline this year. So
Yes. Yes.
everyone take note. Ms. Miller, thank you once again. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And that's
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.